Actually, let's flip it today. We're gonna start. All right. Good morning, folks. Good morning, folks. Give me a second here. Let me just, as always, check all the platforms. Make sure we're good. Good morning, folks. Good morning, folks. Give me a second here. Let me just. YouTube, we're good. Let's go to LinkedIn. You see what it's all about. Faith-based Friday. Faith-based Friday. You know how we do it. You know how we roll. Good morning, folks. Give me a second. Let me just share this out. Get everything shared out, and we will get the party started. There it is. Faith-based Friday. Get everything shared out. All right. Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. We're back. Great morning, great afternoon, great whatever time it is you may be consuming this. You already know what we do over here on Fridays. We call it Faith-based Fridays, where we go over the message the sermon that was given the previous Sunday. As you know, again, it's a person that has had quite the experience. I remember my first time ever doing a faith-based Friday. I gave you quite the experience in regards to church and the religion, and how, you know, it's really just about developing a walk of faith. And today's sermon is all about that. And I go back to the first faith-based Friday, and again, I got really fairly long-winded when it came to attempting to describe the relationships that I've had with church and religion over the years, which is quite a complex one. So before we get into that, as always, let me just introduce myself to anybody that may be a newcomer to my world. My name is Aswan Crookshank. I am your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, former Division I college football player, and current 5-time, soon to be 6-time published author and educator. What I do, what the whole Move Swiftly brand is all about, is taking the lessons that you learn on the football field, in particular the innovative teamwork lessons that you learn on the football field, and applying them to businesses and business owners so they can teach their staff and their group of employees how to become as cohesive and progressive and hungry and eager, the same way you see a championship high school or youth football team be. That's what we want in our businesses. All right. And we do that in many, many different facets. First and foremost, let me just get through some announcements real quick before we get started. Main website to check out to dive deeper into all of that stuff if you're interested in hearing more. It's makeyamove.com. That's MAKEYAMOVE.com. You can shop. You can join the Patreon link, which is probably the best way to do it. Excuse me, not probably, but is the best way to get in touch and to dive deeper into my work. You can book me to come out and speak, or you could just simply learn more about your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, Aswan Crookshank, or you could tune in to the #1 podcast on innovative teamwork, which is the Move Swiftly podcast. All right. So that's, now that we got that out the way, let's get into the message today. Before we get there, a couple things I have to address, being that I am a sports person, a person that talks sports. And when my teams win, I do a lot of talking. I talk a lot. You can see I'm wearing my Michigan Wolverines is so for those of you who don't know, again, huge when it comes to the sports I really tune into, that I really connect myself with. It's football and basketball. And as I've grown older, I've been a whole lot more of a fan of the college game, especially seeing that my business is kind of stemmed from my experience, not kind of, but definitely stemmed directly from my experience as a college football player. I write about, my experience as a college football player as I've grown. The college game, the college football and the college basketball world has been something that has drawn my eyeballs. It's just been more interesting to me as I've gotten older, right? So football wise, this is the way it works for me. Football wise, Michigan Wolverines #1. That's my dogs. I don't care if they go 0-10 or 10 or 10-0 or 0-10. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. All right, that the Michigan Wolverines football program is the team I'm riding with regardless. As you can see, Block Amp, I'm wearing it because right now we are recording this the day of they're playing the Sweet 16 game against Auburn. And, again, go blue. All right. Second team football wise, the Florida State Seminoles. All right. Since the Bobby Bowden days, Bobby Bowden, Peter Warrick, I've been a huge fan of the Florida State Seminoles football-wise, and I always dubbed them as my second team. So Michigan Wolverines, Florida State Seminoles. From there, I'm all about the home team now. All right, I'm all about the home team. I'm born and raised in Silver Spring, Maryland. So from there, I'm all about the Maryland Terrapins. All right, so it's Michigan, Florida State, Maryland Terrapins. That's the way I roll football-wise. Recording this at the end of March, basketball season, and this is the way I roll in basketball. All right, I roll Georgetown Hoyas #1. That's my squad. All right, I know it's been a while since we've been relevant, but again, myself, huge Iverson fan. Iverson, John Thompson, Pat Ewing, Alonzo Mourning, all them boys, man. Listen, Dikembe Mutombo, listen. Georgetown has been my team basketball. It's #1. #2 is the Maryland Terrapins. All right. And #3, Michigan Wolverines, who plays today. But the reason I'm bringing all this up before we get to Faith-Based Fridays, because this is the morning after the Maryland Terrapins got that ass beat by the Florida Gators last night. And because they lost, I have to come on here and eat crow and just say, hey, my team got that ass kicked. Right. That's part of sports. CC, there's a lot of sports people out there that when they team lose, you don't hear them. You don't hear the chirping. I'm not one of those dudes. I'm one of those dudes that say, hey, look, if it's one of my teams that's in it, we had a lot of energy when we won, but we lost. You got to take it on the chin. And in fact, you can go pull my receipts when this past football season, Michigan had a really rough year, and the Florida State Seminoles had a really rough year. You can hear me. You can go look up at all the videos that I've reacted to in terms of just how bad we played, and you just got to own it. But when we went 15-0 the year before, oh yeah, I was doing a lot of when we beat Ohio State, I was doing a lot of talking. So you got to keep that same energy whether you win or lose. Even with, my main, the pro team that I'm a huge supporter of is the Washington Redskins, not the Washington Commanders, but the Washington Redskins, now known as the Washington Commanders. And you can go pull up. We made it to the first NFC Championship game of my entire life, to be honest with you. And, again, as we were going through that, as we, beat Detroit, we beat Tampa Bay. We beat Tampa Bay first, and then we beat Detroit. I was doing a lot of talking, boy. A lot of talking. And then when Philly took that belt and tapped all up in that ass, I was there still talking. It's important, man. And that's the beautiful thing about sports is no matter what, it's always going to end in heartbreak, but you start to test your real loyalty, man. So, I'm really pumped because I'm not allowed to call her my girl, but I can call her my woman. She really is not into sports like that, but her dad is. So it's great that I get to be the one to really teach her how sports things work. And, the goal is by the time we get to 2026, she's going to be absolutely a sports fanatic, as psychotic as it's going to be hard to be as psychotic as me, but she's definitely going to be someone that is as into the games as I am and all that kind of stuff. So just have to make sure I mention that, seeing that, hey, Maryland, from Maryland, and I'm still riding with my dogs no matter what, still riding with my Terps no matter what. Terps, Georgetown, we're talking about, basketball. See the two teams that make the list on both football and basketball, the two teams, Michigan Wolverines and the Maryland Terrapins. You got to understand, whether it's football season or basketball season, those are the two teams that make the list of my support every single, throughout the entire year. So that M, whenever I see that M, whether it's the Michigan M or the Maryland M, it's like, let's go. It's go time, baby. It's go time, baby. That block M or the little, turtle shell M. It's go time. We ride regardless. All right. So let's get into today's message, man, because if I start talking sports, I might forget. Let's get into the message. Robert Madu again. Robert Madu back at it. He came back to Life Church, and he started the sermon with what I love is a personal story. And it's something that again, as a speaker, as a public speaker, as a pub, whether you want to call yourself public figure, public speaker, anybody that is addressing people on the regular in a public fashion. This is a very, very important skill to develop. It's about telling a story that's giving a personal window, showing people the human side of you. In fact, if you go listen to today's Move Swiftly Thought, I actually was reacting to how much I enjoyed the Pat McAfee and LeBron James interview, because what I saw, I for the first time since, I've been watching for 20 years, been 2 decades since LeBron has been in the league. And, if you recall back to his high school years, I've been keeping up with LeBron for 2 decades, like a lot of people have. This was the first time, at least, that I've seen this human side of him where, you can go kick it with him at a 9. Now, keep in mind, I'm sure he does it on some of his, like the shop and stuff like that. But I never really have time to listen to too much of these athletes when they put out their podcasts and all that. I personally have my own stuff to do, so I don't get a chance to see as much of it as maybe somebody who doesn't have their own show. I used to listen to I Am Athlete and The Pivot quite a bit, but the human side that was shown when LeBron and Pat McAfee were just chopping it up. You get a great sports culture. He's in Indianapolis. He goes and hits the buzzer beater to beat the Indiana Pacers. It was just, again, sports town and guys talking sports, right? So when it comes to Pastor Madu, and he starts off his sermon talking about a situation with his daughter, and he starts to kind of take a little jab. In my opinion, was a jab towards the education system, a jab that I actually agree with, that I would have liked him to take a full jab, but I would have liked him to follow up that jab with the cross and say to the education system, because he's actually talking about what's the point of still having spelling bees? What's the point of still doing that and stuff like that? And then as he gives that story, he starts to transition it into a situation in which he's speaking about the importance of faith. All right. That is a skill all of us have to master. We must master this skill of being able to tell a personal story and then being able to use that story as a ladder, as a transition, as kind of a way of moving your audience to the overall message that you're trying to give. All right. So I'm gonna let him take it away. I'm gonna let him cook a little bit. And then we'll get into some more reaction and more things that he was talking about. But he did put my daughter, she wanted help because she was preparing for their spelling bee. I said, "Oh, communication, words. I got you, girl." Hold on, let me go back a little bit, because he talked about, it's kind of funny because he talked about when his daughter comes for homework, he was a little frightened at the fact that he might not know what the homework is. So let me let him cook now. It's not a good feeling. So, but recently my daughter, she wanted help. That when your child comes to you with stuff that you don't understand and you can't help them with, there's nothing scarier than when your child's like, "Can you help me with this?" And you're like, "Okay, hold on one second. ChatGPT, real quick. What is 9 times 3? It's not a good feeling. So, but recently my daughter, she wanted help because she was preparing for their spelling bee. I said, "Oh, communication, words. I got you, girl." So we started practicing working on her spelling bee. We had the flashcards and everything. And I'll tell you what word almost took us out. I'll tell you the word that almost took us out. We had to go over it and over it. It'll take some of y'all out here today. Woo, Wednesday. That's the word that almost took us out. I said, "Okay, baby girl, I don't care how it phonetically sounds. It is Wednesday. That's how you're going to get through this spelling bee." So we worked all week, and I'm just so glad to announce today that my baby girl got 4th place in the whole. Yes. And she got home and she's like, "Daddy, I don't ever want to do that again." And it got me thinking, like, why are we still doing spelling bees? It's crazy that we're still doing this in America today. I did my research. We have been doing spelling bees in this country since 1808. Since 1808, we have been forcing children to get on stage with a microphone and spell. Ladies and gentlemen, you understand that the number one human fear is public speaking. The number one human fear, if death is number 2.
That means people would rather have a funeral than speak at a funeral, okay? And we're going to subjugate kids to spelling on stage. We got to stop this. And then I started thinking, I wonder
I agree with
if
that.
God had a spelling bee, what would be the word he would make us spell? I know you're looking at me like God wouldn't give us a spelling bee. Well, he's not just God.
You see what I mean? You see how he transitioned that? You see how the transition seemed flawless? You go from a story, like a real story, and I don't doubt that his daughter did have a spelling bee. I didn't go fact check him or anything like that. But it started out with a very personal story. And one of the things you got to understand about being in business, being an entrepreneur, having the mindset of I'm going to go out and create opportunities for myself. Having that mindset requires every single day, and you guys have heard me say this over and over again, whenever I come up with my own topics, or when I'm thinking about, whenever I'm thinking about what I'm going to be saying or what I'm going to be talking about the next day, every single moment has to have this element of it. Okay, what did I learn from that? How can I address this? How can I put my own spin to it? How can I, transition this into a message that's going to be uplifting the people and it's going to be helping people? And I can sort of translate it in a way that makes it so my clients, my people, the people that I look to work with, the people I look to focus on are going to be benefiting because I see things a certain way. You see how we transition that? That was absolutely incredible. That was perfect. Nailed it. I mean, one of the first things I learned in Toastmasters, I'm familiar with Toastmasters. It's basically a club in which you go and develop and practice as a public speaker. It was like you have got to put the right story in the right situation and then use the story as a way of getting to your message. All right. It's art. It's art. It is absolutely art. It's beautiful when you see it done the right way.
Just master, he's also a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I started thinking, if God had a spelling bee, what would be the word that he would make every believer, past, present, and future spell?
There it is.
I think I know what it is. Faith. I am convinced that in God's spelling bee, the word that he would make you stand on the stage, knees knocked and hands shaken and spell would be faith. Ladies and gentlemen, in your walk with the Lord, faith is not optional. Faith is essential. Faith is the oxygen of our relationship with God. Faith is critical. Faith, it's almost impossible to overestimate the value of what faith is. Faith is so important that when the Apostle Paul is writing to the church of Ephesus and he lets them know about what their salvation is, he said, it is by grace you have been saved through faith. Not of yourselves that anybody should boast. It is the gift of God. It says that we walk by faith, not by sight. The writer of Hebrews says that without faith, it is impossible to please God. Faith is everything. Faith is so important that somebody in here can testify. I am here today because I've been walking this journey by faith. I'm not here by my own intellect. I'm not here by my own gifting. Every step I've had to take has been a step of faith. Faith is so critical. And maybe because people talk about faith in church all the time, maybe I need to explain what faith is not. Faith is not a personality test. Faith is not a characteristic. Faith is not like a class you can take, and then once you take the class, you're like, oh, done with that. Don't have to go through that anymore. No. Faith is deeper than that Hobby Lobby picture that you saw with the cat holding on to the rope, talking about keep the faith. No. Faith, although it is a noun, it best operates as a verb. Because if there's anything that faith will demand from you, it is action. Faith demands action. Faith will demand that you take a step. Faith will unsettle you. Faith will shake you. Faith will not allow you to sit in complacency. Faith won't let you sit on the sideline. Faith will push you into everything that God has for you. Faith will make you leave a good job with great benefits and say, I'm out here. I don't know what's next, but I'm trusting God. Faith will make you move to a city that you don't even like, but you know that God told you to go there. Faith will make your family members look at you like you have lost your mind. What are you doing? This makes no sense. You're like, I know, but he's calling me. Faith is not for those who want to play it safe. Faith is not for those who want comfort. Faith is for those who for walking with God. It is critical. Ooh, let me tell you why most of us miss God's spelling bee. Because God gives us the word faith, right? He says, spell it. And we get up on stage and we get ready to spell faith. And we go, all right, faith. S-A-F-E. And God's like, try again. Okay, faith. Ooh, all right. C-A-L-M. And God's like, try again. All right. Faith. Oh, here it is. P-E-A-C-E. And God's like, that messed up half of y'all.
All right. So I want to pause it there. I want to pause it this. Think about those three words. All right. Think about the way they're thrown around in society. Think about how you have heard those three terms. All right. It was peace, calm, and safe. You've heard those terms. You've heard all three of those terms and thrown around in a positive light. This is one of the things that I think is really, really key when it comes to his message and what I don't think he really addressed this concept. He kind of did, but I want to make sure I'm bringing it home today on Faith-Based Friday, because this message is really, really tied into what I do every single Friday. When you hear the term peace, when you hear the term safe, and when you hear the term calm, all of those three phrases are thrown around normally in a positive tone. All right, go play it safe. You're safe by doing this. You need more peace. You need to be more calm. You hear people, adults, people with influence, people that are highly respected, and they use the term as if it is something that is positive, right? But are you starting to see where the contradiction comes in? Are you starting to see where the thing comes in now, where you're not going to be able to move forward towards your goals? You're not going to be able to move forward towards the things that you want to do if you rely too heavily on those terms. If you want to develop a walk of faith, it is going to get a little rocky. You're going to have to run into some things. You're going to have to do some things that are incredibly risky, that are incredibly just out there, and people are going to be looking at you crazy. But when it comes to this whole peace and safe and calm and all that, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. All right, that's what he's saying. It's very, really important that you drive that, or you make a point.
He was notorious for going, I don't really have a peace about this. As if God gives you a peace for everything that you're about to step into. Can you imagine God in the Garden of Gethsemane? I don't really have a peace about going to the cross. Of course, you don't have a peace about it, but yet it was God's will to crucify him. And thank God he didn't go just from a peace. We got salvation because he was obedient when it wasn't comfortable. I'm just waiting on a piece. I'm glad I had to wait for a piece before I decided to show up and preach to y'all today. I would be at the house watching Netflix. No, here's how you spell faith. You ready? All right. R-I-S-K. Ding, 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 ding.
That's it. That's it. Right there. All right. Now, I am not up here telling you this is easy. Not at all. Not at all. Yeah, I am not. I'm the last person to tell you that what is written, what you see right there on the screen, if you're watching this visually, is easy. It is not. It is the most challenging thing you're going to have to do, because this right here is going to be where you start separating yourself from the folks that eventually become part of your memory, like your past. All right. When you start taking risks, you start to see the true colors in people. You start to see people for who they really are. You start to see people for what they're really about. You start to see people for what kind of guts they really have, and if they're really going to be the ones that you want to carry with you towards the next season of your life. If you do not take more risks, you're never going to be able to figure out how to decipher between the ones that are meant for a longer season versus the ones that were just meant for a smaller season. All right. So as we get in, I see I'm running. I like to keep these around 30 minutes. Let me get to the point where he is talking. So basically the story that he discussed was about Jesus walking on water. And again, like I was telling you last week, it's so interesting sitting in this church and learning from these people, because I didn't grow up in a church home. I didn't grow up being, told to go to church and reading the Bible. Reading the Bible and things like that. I didn't grow up with that. I went to a Catholic school, and then, again, the religion was kind of just told to me in a fashion. Well, the Bible was told to me in a fashion in which it gave me a certain grade on a test, and you had to do it. It was required based on school and stuff like that. It was until later on in life where I realized, man, the walk of faith is so different than just being in a religion, quote unquote, right? So these stories that he tells, and the perspective that he gives to these stories, I'm still like a kid, in Bible study and stuff like that, just learning things and picking up on new things, and again, developing that walk of faith. So as he gets to the story about God walking on water is where I want to take you guys, because he gives a perspective to this story that I had yet to hear. So
for disease, authority over anxiety.
I think where this is it.
Somebody be like, hey, you should come to church. And then all of a sudden I'll look, I'm like, hold on, I lost one. Hey, stop talking to you.
This is, yeah.
Stop talking to you.
Let me go back a little bit.
Is always looking at me, that he is Elroy, the God who sees me. Oh, somebody ought to thank God for that. That no matter the storm, God has never taken his part from you, because he loves you so much. He's watching. This is not a God who doesn't care. This is a God who is watching your every step. Even when you feel like you're about to go under, he never took his eye off of them. What a beautiful Savior that doesn't get distracted, but can keep his eye on them. I have a rule. I have to be careful when I go to public parks. My wife knows this. She's like, keep your eyes on the kids. Because I go to a park and I'll just be talking to somebody. I'll be like, hey, you should come to church. And then all of a sudden I'll look and I'm like, hold on, I lost one. Stop talking to you, distracted me. Can I tell you some good news? Your Savior cannot be distracted. He's able to see you right where you are. He has never taken his eyes off of you. Look at how cool, calm, and collected Jesus is. They're struggling. He's watching them. And then when he goes to them, he does not run on the water. I'm sorry, if I'm about to drown, this text should be Jesus ran on water. He doesn't run. He walks on water. Can you see him? Even the Greek speaks to Jesus just doing a casual stroll on water. Walking on water. You know why he's walking and not running? Because this was not a rescue mission. This was a revelation mission. He was showing them who he was. He was showing them by walking on water, cool, calm, and collected, that I'm walking on top of the thing that's trying to take you under. So if it's trying to take you under and I'm walking on top of it, you need to know I have authority over it. And can I just declare to somebody who's listening to this message today, the thing that you think is going to take you under, God has authority over it. He has authority over sickness, authority over disease, authority over anxiety, authority over depression. Oh, I'm telling you, he can walk on top of what seeks to take you under. And he walks on top of it to show those who took the risk. Look at the revelation of the God that has all power and all authority.
All right, real quick before I want to close you out with the one of the things that he actually. Let me see if I can find it. Real quick, let me see if I can find it. So it's a great example of connecting this thing kind of to the secular world, because he speaks on the concept of how they categorize hurricanes and how they categorize winds, and like winds as a winds, how you never actually see something visually, but it's like he does a better job than me explaining it, but how you never actually see the winds, but you know how powerful it is based on the category. And he connects it with when you see people, you never know how much things are working inside them or what's going on inside of them that's pushing them. And you have to really ask questions and be a part of the faith. So again, I want to close you out with that concept, because he does it great. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Storm in Matthew 14. So
Storm.
man pulls out his. About to get them leaves. I went. It's after you take. They didn't really know who they were following. They will follow you. About the size of your faith. It is. Oh, that blows my mind. This is the guy that he's there. But he took the risk. Is the substance of things hoped for.
Let's see if I can see.
God, he didn't go just. Jesus walked with this text down. One setting. They didn't really know what. Wow, that's what I said. You find out. It's after you've taken. Oh, look at him over time. Cannibalism, is that what we're doing?
Hold on real quick.
Just to
Let me
get
see if I can find it.
all the things that he and this. Here's the first one you catch one day. Not the storm of our text. Understand that this storm in Matthew 14 on the boat is on a cushion. They didn't say that. He's still calm storms with 3 words. By the way, if you're in a storm, as long as he's on your boat, everything is gonna be okay. Period. Everything in the storm are coming at you. Hear me, I've grown up in church and we talk a lot about the storms of disobedience. Come on, I preach that message. The storm of obedience. And watch this. That sounds awesome. And I'm glad you clapped for that. Because I have preached that. In a storm.
Man, where was it?
Just imagine you're
See, this is what I like, because it makes me have to go back and listen.
Everybody, I'm glowing in the dark. To you. So those of you who are waiting for God, that God always gives you the. That's what I said. I do. Just follow you. They never will follow you. There's benefit. About dysfunctional Peter. He's down. I love it, John.
I forgot where he had it.
Walk on it. And Peter walked. Kind of season. Eric has seen to you according to your risk. Your risk has made you whole. Here's how you spell faith. You ready?
All right. I'm gonna have to.
Sickness. It is I.
Anyway, but I'll explain because I see I'm running out of time. Basically, he had it to where he spoke on it. And again, I'll make sure I leave the link. Just go listen to the whole sermon on your own. But he was talking about how we categorize wins, and he's like 1 is 2 is 3 is 4 and 5. Like he was talking about hurricanes and categories and stuff like that, and basically categorizing the winds and speaking on the concept of, even though we can't see wind specifically, we never know how it's, drudging up a person or what a person's going through and all that kind of stuff. So again, go learn, go tune into these things on your own. The reason I do this Faith-Based Friday is to just simply make you aware of having faith and aware of the power of having faith. Just like when you're doing breathing exercises, the first thing you tell a person whenever they're breathing or whenever you're trying to get them to breathe properly or, relax them in some way or get them to calm down is you just say, look, pay attention to your breaths, make decisions the right way, calm down. I know I'm using the word calm in a positive light, and it might be contradicting compared to if you're thinking about what I just said, but when you're taking the risk and when you're moving in a way where you're starting to become comfortable being uncomfortable, these are the steps and these are the things you have to do. So all that being said, man, been an incredible week. Looking forward to continuously having these. Tune in tomorrow. Tomorrow is film session Saturday. Actually, let me put that up while I am here. Film session Saturday. We are going over. Let me just do that real quick. we have. Let me just break it down. Starting film session Saturday, we're breaking down the Clemson and SMU ACC championship game. Let me put it up. So, yep, it's tomorrow at 9 a.m. Just subscribe right there. Also, as always, want to dive deeper into all my work, have me come out and work with your organization to build a solid team. It's go to makeitmove.com. That's MakeYAMOVE.com. One-stop shop for your teamwork and your self-development needs. As one Crookshank, your one and only Move Swiftly speaker. Check it out. You guys continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.